Welcome. You're listening to St. Louis Creatives, the digital home of St. Louis creatives and creators. Today we have with us Gaby Deimeke, who's a New York-based commercial and lifestyle photographer, born and raised in Missouri, currently in St. Louis. She's been working on a number of creative projects recently, and welcome to the show, Gaby. Hi.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. How's it going?
Good. I'm excited to chat. I actually, I had a shoot like all day yesterday, so up right before this, I was just editing like 2,000 photos, or well, sorting them and then editing them. So I'm ready to have a break from that.
Oh my God, what type of shoot did you have?
It was a bridal styled shoot. So we borrowed some dresses from a wedding dress designer, and we actually shot at my parents' farm, like at sunset in a field with horses. It was crazy, but they're really cool. So,
did you have models or a real couple, or how did that work out?
It was one of my friends who's a model. Yep, she modeled for us, so it was awesome.
Nice. Well, it sounds like you've got your work cut out for you with the 2,000 images there.
Oh my gosh, that's like, I think that might be my least favorite part of the whole editing process, is just that initial culling from like thousands of photos, just because it is kind of time consuming. But then after that, you get to like make adjustments and edit and kind of see your creation come to life.
Yeah, definitely. So I understand you just finished a 2-year project and had the gallery show in New York recently.
Yes.
How did that go?
That, was a culmination of a project I've been working on for 2 years now. The series is called Badass Women of New York, and basically I started it because I had just moved to New York a little over 2 years ago, and I saw all these successful women, entrepreneurs, business owners that were doing awesome stuff, and I was like, man, I want to be like that someday. Like, I want to be this badass lady who's like working on all these projects and just doing her own thing. And so my way of kind of trying to work through that for myself as a young freelance photographer moving to a new place was, my idea was just to interview them and talk to them about kind of the struggles they had, the things that worked for them, the things they went through along the way. And then I also photographed them and took their portrait. And so at the end of my 2 years, I ended up with this body of like 50 to 60 portraits of these women and all of their different advice and thoughts. Yeah. So that was a really cool project for me to kind of just do as a personal project, like on the side of all my regular freelance work. And it was really rewarding to see it come together at the end.
Absolutely.
Yes, so I think one thread that kind of weaves throughout the whole project is resiliency with the women who worked and heard a lot of no's, but continued their businesses anyway, or started their passion project anyway.
Yeah.
And one kind of funny story I have with that is I kind of was so inspired by that I was being really resilient too. So there was this incredible lady, her name is Ingrid Silva, and she's a professional ballet dancer in New York and all over the world, and she's absolutely incredible. And I really, really wanted her to be a part of the show. She also founded a nonprofit called Empower Her.
Okay.
So she's like super into empowering women, and especially in the dance world. So I really wanted to get her in as part of my series. And her team was like, they were like, we can try to fit it in, but she has a really busy schedule. She's out of town all the time.
Oh, wow.
And so for like almost a full year, we tried to schedule that. And I like to do an hour, so that way I have time to set up their portrait, shoot their portrait, and then do like an interview of them as well.
Right.
And they were like, she's not gonna have an hour. Like, how quickly can you do it? And I was like, okay, I'll do it in like 30 minutes. And they were like, she has 15 minutes on her dance break, like next week or something.
Yeah.
And it was like the week before my gallery show. And so I was like, I'll make it work. So I went to her dance studio, took pictures in like 5 minutes, which it was not hard because it was a huge studio with windows and natural light coming in. It was like stunning. And then interviewed her really, really quickly and had to print the photos the next day. And the show was like 3 days later.
Oh my God. So how did you set up the shoot then? Because I know you have to really maximize the time that you have with them if you only have especially 15 minutes. How did you set that up?
Yeah, so I I tend to like to do like 2 to 3 locations for that. So even if we were just in like a room, I would say, okay, cool, let's have you by this wall. Let's do a standing one. Let's do a closer up sitting one, and then maybe run outside to do a natural light one. But with her, it was actually awesome because she literally was coming straight from dance practice. She was in her full like ballet gear. And so I just did a couple variations of her pose, like with the bar, kind of standing, a couple like ballet poses, and then a couple quick portraits. And I couldn't have been more lucky because it was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon and the sun was like just shining in this gorgeous white room. And it's actually one of my favorite shots of the series as well. I think one thing that's kind of cool for me is as I was doing the series and I was kind of just taking like one portrait at a time and maybe interviewing like one woman like once a week kind of thing, or like every few weeks, the portraits, like I was like, okay, these are cool pictures. But I think the thing for me that really stuck out is when I finally like printed them and hung them for the gallery show. It was the first time I had ever like actually seen all of them together. And so looking at this entire wall and seeing all these different women from all these different places working in different industries, that's the kind of like wow moment that I had. Is I was like, wow, all like it just the culmination of everything. Yeah, the culmination of the project was really powerful. So for me, I love how diverse the whole project looks and how the portraits are all set up very similarly, where it's kind of like a mid shot. They're almost all of them are done in natural light. But then just seeing all these different faces, it was amazing. Absolutely. Would you say you shot most of them in New York, or there were some in London as well? So I shot all of those in New York. Yeah, the London stuff that the projects I worked on in London were mostly fashion editorial shots and like different looks for London College of Fashion, where I studied. Oh, okay, great. Yeah, that's a great segue into what I wanted to mention. So you studied at Webster University, and then you ended up at the London College of Fashion. Yep. So what was that like? What's it like being a student of fashion photography? What's a day in the life of a fashion photography student? Yeah, so it was definitely very interesting coming from, I grew up on a farm, and then I went to college in St. Louis. So St. Louis was kind of the biggest town I had ever lived in, and I lived there for 4 years when I went to Webster. And then when I was a sophomore at Webster, I studied abroad for a semester in London. And that's when I kind of got the taste of travel and being abroad and like how amazing that experience is. So I knew that after I graduated, I really wanted to go back abroad. So applying to UAL and going to London College of Fashion was kind of my excuse to get to travel a little more, get to be in school and do more photography before I kind of join the real world, so to speak. And so, yeah, the master's program I did there was really cool in that it was very kind of like on your own studying. So we would have lectures like maybe 2 or 3 times a week. And then we would meet with our class to kind of critique our photos and work on our projects. But all the projects were full semester projects. So instead of just doing like a photo shoot every week, we would have like a main concept that we would be focusing on and doing test shoots the whole semester. And then our big final shoot at the end of the semester. So that was really cool because I think in the real world, you don't do a lot of like big project-based work like that. You do a lot of like smaller projects. Right. So that was kind of an interesting experience. And then just getting to collab with other students at the school was amazing because there were stylists, there were fashion designers, and all these different people and creatives that they wanted to collaborate with their artistic abilities and incorporate it with photography. So it was just all around one of the coolest experiences ever, and I'm so glad I got to do it. Yeah, that's fantastic. I've done some fashion photography in the past as well, and that's what I really love about it is the collaboration, bringing all the creativity together, and then making something completely new out of nothing. So I can relate to that. That's fantastic. One of my favorite images from your work that I saw was, I think it was one that you submitted to Elegant magazine. It was published in Elegant magazine, and it was with the pink neon lights and. Can you tell us a little about the inspiration for that, or how you shot that, or how that came together? Yes. So that one, we shot in London at Lights of Soho. Wow, okay. And it actually was this it's kind of like a cafe, like hangout, like restaurant type of place.
Yeah.
And they just have all these neon lights on the wall for sale. You can actually buy them.
Okay.
And so it actually was like right down the street from my uni in London, because my school was right on Oxford Street. It was like right in the heart of London, which was incredible. And so one of my collaborators on the shoot, Sarah is her name, she's one of my good friends from London, we had been walking down the street and we were like, oh my gosh, this place is so cool. And we kind of emailed them, tried to connect, and nobody got back to us. They were saying like, we don't do photo shoots for students, so like whatever, leave us alone kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we just went in one day, and toward the end of the semester, and we were just like, hi, like, we're these students, we go to school down the street, we're fashion photographers, like, is there any way we can do a shoot, like, in the space, like, anytime, like, we can do it in, like, 30 minutes, and they were like, okay, what are you guys, like, I think the space is gonna be open for, like, an hour tomorrow, and we were like, okay, yeah, totally, we'll do it in an hour or less, we promise. And so we just got this model together, had one of our stylist friends throw together all these looks, ran in, did the whole thing in like an hour and 15 minutes. We shot 6 looks.
Oh, wow.
And it's just like, it's so cool. Like the neon lights make it so rad. So that's probably my favorite shoot from London. I definitely don't have a problem asking random people if we can do photo shoots, whether it be like in a restaurant, on the street, or, you know, any kind of public place. London and New York definitely like knocked out any kind of shyness with that. Now I'm just like, they might say no, but I'm going to ask anyway, because if they say yes, then we get to do a cool photo shoot with a taxi cab.
Exactly. So that's awesome. So when you reached out, one of the things that really stood out to me was that 30-day challenge that you had just put out. I think it was for the month of May. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how did you stay inspired for 30 days straight? I mean, that's incredible. That's amazing. I can't imagine doing that for 30 days.
It was tough for sure. Kind of in the middle, I'd say. So probably about 3 or 4 years ago, I had seen some photographers, like back in the day, they did it for a year. They did like a 365 challenge.
Yeah.
But it wasn't self-portraits. It was just like, you know, I carry my camera with me. I take a shot and one shot for every single day.
Right.
But I kind of wanted to like take it up a notch. So I was like, okay, in May, I'm going to do one self-portrait every single day and like set up a proper shoot for it. So it like looks, you know, unique. And I kind of just did that because, you know, we'd been in quarantine for like 6 weeks at that point. Mm-hmm. I had been feeling like it was just kind of a shock for me going from, I had just been in New York for like the past 3 months, and I had been doing like sometimes 3 shoots a day for 6 days a week. Like it was like really, really fast paced and hectic, and I was shooting a ton because I was trying to get those last portraits in for my Badass Women series.
Yeah.
So it was like I was shooting 24/7, it felt like. And then to go from that to quarantine and just be like, I haven't done a shoot in an entire week, it was like totally startling to me. So I really wanted to like jumpstart my creativity. Mm-hmm. And so I started by I made a mood board with like some, I started a folder, threw in a bunch of Pinterest ideas and things on Instagram I had seen but like never actually executed on.
Right.
And what I realized is like there were actually so many shoots where I was like, I had that idea to do that shoot for weeks or years, and I had just never set out like an hour of time to actually execute the shoot. Mm-hmm. So that was a cool thing, is to just like prioritize and make space for being creative and like working through that kind of stuff and not rushing through shoots. And it really did. It really jump-started my creativity. I found myself, as I was going throughout my everyday life, if I would see a bouquet of flowers, I would be like, oh my gosh, maybe I should save these flowers and like do some kind of editorial shoot with it for tomorrow's shoot. Or I was in that frame of mind, that creative, like creating state, I feel like the whole time I was in that project. So that was really cool. But yeah, there were definitely days where maybe if I had a busy day, or if I was super tired or something, and I was like, I am not in the mood to go set up 2 lights, set up a camera on a tripod, connect the trigger, take a bunch of poses, go import it into Lightroom and edit it, But there's really only there's probably like 3 or 4 days where I'm like, that picture was kind of like really subpar. But all the other days I'm like actually pretty obsessed with how the images turned out.
Oh yeah, no, it was outstanding.
Thank you.
Do you want to break down a couple of images for us? And
yes, for sure.
Did you have a mood board for each image, or was it like a mood board for the series, or?
I kind of did end up having a mood board for, I would say, like 30% of the shots. So maybe if it was a one with flowers, I would pull like 5 or 10 flower images and kind of use them as a reference for the shoot. But some days, there were probably like 5 of the days when I just went and like into my studio, which is basically just I hung up a white sheet in a room and I have a light. I just went in there and I honestly just put on like a random dress or something and then started posing in weird ways and then figured out how I could make it a cool shot.
Yeah.
But yeah, most of them I had a general idea of like a concept I wanted to go for. I'll start with my favorite one that turned out from the series, which is the whole composite I did. I actually did it on day 5, I think.
Okay.
And it's a shot of me. I'm like really small in the frame because it's a full body of me from more of a distance. And I actually took it outside on just a gravel road, normal sky. It was like a really average day out, like not too sunny, not too shady, just kind of an average picture.
Yeah. And
I've been wanting to do this for a long time where I make a huge composite. And so it took I think I took like 3 shots outside. It took like 5 minutes to take that photo. But then it took like 3 hours to edit it all together. So I selected the grass, overlaid some pink onto it. I added some palm trees. I added just a bunch of kind of like whimsical, out of this world elements and kind of collaged them all together. And I just love how it turned out because it's like a pink wonderland, which is like my dream. I think I kind of ended up with a really interesting mix of influences, art definitely being one. So from going to Webster and like learning about photography in kind of a formal educational setting, I had to take a variety of different art history classes. So learning all about from the beginning stages of like, marble sculptures and those kind of things from like way back in the day, all the way up until like, Andy Warhol and like modern pop art and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I had that kind of formal training of like knowing a lot of notable photographers, knowing a lot of notable artists. And then that kind of all flipped whenever I went to London. And then I got a lot of fashion inspiration. And it was very much at LCF about knowing the history of fashion and making sure that your work is saying something in terms of the influence of art and art history and just world history, really. Mm-hmm. And they really stress the importance of making like a statement with the piece you're creating. So I have the kind of like traditional art background and then the fashion background. And then going to New York, I kind of just like meshed it all together with just like urban city culture. And so I think my work has like a really interesting mix because of that.
Yeah.
Even with my portrait work, like I love for it to be kind of like a fashion-y image. Even with my self-portrait stuff, like they're not documentary work, they're very editorialized. So even my wedding work too is very kind of fashion-y. So it's kind of an interesting mix, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, each one of these images make a statement, or they have a story, or I mean, all of them are striking images in my opinion. So that's why I was really impressed that you shot these in 30 days.
Well, thank you. I think those are interesting too because like, when you're shooting for other clients or other people, you have to shoot to their vision or whatever their concept is.
Right,
but
yeah.
I think the 30-day challenge was one of the first times where I was like, no, this 30 days, like this is about like me and my vision and how I can convey like what I want to say in it. And so I think that's where you get a lot of those, like the pink, the whimsical, the sparkles, like that's my daydream, is like a very cheerful, sparkly world.
Yeah, and they're all very different images, but you can tell that it's your work.
Thank you. The only one I don't like is the day 9, May 9th. And it was a rainy day and I did a blue, it's like rain with a blue background. And blue is just not for me. I think, it's just always pink.
Gotcha. So as we're signing off here, are there any last thoughts you want to leave for the audience?
I would say the only other thing that I wanted to say is maybe kind of like talk to like young photographers that are just getting started.
Okay.
And I think one thing that a lot of people think is that, you have to buy the Mark IV and you have to buy the expensive $2,000 lenses and all that stuff like before you can get started with photography. And so the one thing I would just say is like, I bought like the cheap $100 50 millimeter lens when I first started, and I shot on that thing for like 8 years.
Yeah.
And so, my advice would just be get whatever kind of gear you can get. The gear really doesn't matter. What matters is building your creativity and just keep shooting as much as you can. Shoot constantly. Shoot all of your friends. Shoot anybody that will let you shoot them so you can just keep practicing your skill set. And that's really what's going to take you far is like the practice, the work ethic, and not necessarily having the most expensive gear.
I think that's great advice for not only photographers, but for any creative field.
Absolutely.
I feel like creativity is a muscle, and the more you exercise that muscle, it's just the stronger your creativity is, just like we saw in your 30-day challenge.
Totally agree. I think creativity is like, if there's one thing that you should be doing on a consistent basis to keep your art fresh and new and learning and growing, it would just be it is worth it to spend the time and effort, whether that's journaling about a project you want to work on, or putting together a mood board, or just doing some creative things to kind of get that energy flowing. I think you're totally right. It builds and builds upon itself.
Well, it was great talking with you.
Thank you.
I want to thank everyone for listening, taking the time out of your busy day. So until next time, stay creative, St. Louis.